Liboros Oshoma, a lawyer, and Senator Magnus Abe, former governorship candidate of the Social Democratic Party in Rivers State. Well, Liboros is here with us in the studio. Senator Abe will be joining us from Port Harcourt. Now, let's start with you, Liboros Oshoma. I see, as usual, characteristically, you have a constitution in front of you. Could you help us review this drama that we've been witnessing since the declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State? You know the details. I don't need to rehash them for you.
Yes, thank you. If you look at the provisions of Section 305, subsection 4, subsection 5, and subsection 6, you will, let me start from what happened at the National Assembly, when the Constitution says that we require 2/3 of the members. How do you calculate 2/3 with the ayes having it?
No, they said attendance register.
Attendance.
Honorable
They took attendance.
Tajuddin Abbas said they took attendance. When Obi Agwocha said there must be a head count. So that we Nigerians can know who was there and who voted and how.
You see, first and foremost, the rule of the Senate, if you start from the rule of the Senate, the drafters of that rule knew what they were doing. When they, in the state of declaration of a state of emergency, they proposed an executive session where nobody, no Nigerian, will see what was transpiring. So let's go into executive session.
Closed session.
Closed session. Nobody will see them. At the end of the day, some people will come out and say, no, we opposed it in closed session. We didn't see. You can, at every time, on matters of national importance, the Senate has, at some instances, stand out their rules to ensure transparency. But in this case, first and foremost, you insisted this is the rule and it is sacrosanct. We're talking about constitutional matters here. You say there is danger, imminent danger, or that there is crisis. And so, the Constitution required 2/3 majority of the members of the Senate and the members of the House of Rep. You now go with those in support say aye and those against say nay, and then the ayes have it. I've been trying to calculate, that 2/3 using voice vote. You say you took attendance of members. And so if you took attendance, would it not be better and more transparent for you to also show us through particular votes, and since the Constitution requires 2/3, so that Nigerians will say, yes, this was who voted for and this is who voted against. But this attitude of everybody just swimming and then we're lost. So, but before then, let me backtrack a little to even the state of emergency declaration. The president referred to the Supreme Court judgment and as the basis for the declaration and then the subsequent bomb blast and destruction of pipeline. Before the Supreme Court judgment, if the president had come to say there was chaos, the question I would have asked, are you the court? Why not wait for the court to make a pronouncement? After the court pronouncement, the court had cured whatever defect, constitutional defect there was in Rivers State.
Yes.
The court had cured it. And parties had gone back to respecting and responding to the judgment of the court. And that was why the governor extended a letter to the State House of Assembly. The State House of Assembly also met and invited members of the state electoral bodies to appear before them. And I'm aware that 3 members appeared before the state electoral body, the Senate, the House of Assembly. So if you look at the provisions of Section 11, subsection 4, you couldn't say that the House of Assembly was not sitting. If you now say there is, I also would say that the statement credited to the governor was a reckless statement. A governor should have been making such statements saying that he would tell the Rivers boys when to launch or when to deploy.
Very bad,
reckless statement. And I think that anybody could have capitalized on that statement, including his opponents. Because the IJAW boys that we're talking about, they are Savannah boys. The crisis didn't happen in the IJAW area. It happened in the Ogoni area. So the opponent could have capitalized on such a statement to cause that crisis. And then, are we saying that the federal government cannot investigate such a crisis? To say, okay, let's even investigate this and know where it is coming from. And so you just muddled up all of the issues, all of the constitutional issues, all of the challenges, and then you declare a state of emergency. I've searched the entire gamut of this constitution. People have referred to the Western region when Maje Kudumi was appointed as a sole administrator, referred to Atiku and Obasanjo's era during the Plateau State, Darie, and then the Ekiti issue. I also want to draw the attention of the same people to when Goodluck Jonathan declared a state of emergency, and the statement of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as opposition leader then. He said it was demonic. It was demonic, and it was smack of, you know, desecrating democratic structures and also power grabbing in the then president's march to 2015. And so what has changed? Is it no longer that Democrat that once preached that democratic structures cannot be destroyed? Even in that case, Goodluck Jonathan did not suspend democratic institutions in those 3 states. But the military that were asked to go keep peace, actually, you know, kept peace. So in this case, you say you are relying on precedent and you suspend democratic structures. And yet, the last question, sorry, doctor, the last question I want to ask, if the president declares a state of emergency in the entire country, will he suspend himself from office?
Good question, like you asked yesterday.
I raised that question 2 days ago, but quickly, there's a lot
thing around, there was potential breakdown of law and order in the state.
Let's, you know, we operate a constitutional democracy.
Yes.
Section 105, Section 305, subsection 3. The president shall have power to issue a proclamation of a state of emergency only when the federation is at war, the federation is in imminent danger of invasion or involvement in a state of war, there is actual breakdown of public law, public order, and public safety in the federation or any part thereof to such extent as to require extraordinary measure to restore peace and security. There's a clear and present danger of an actual breakdown of public order and public safety in the federation or any part thereof, requiring extraordinary measure to avert such danger. There's an occurrence of imminent danger or the occurrence of any disaster or natural calamity affecting the community or a section of the community in the federation. There is any other public danger which clearly constitutes a threat to the existence of the federation, or the president received a request to so do in accordance with provision of subsection 4 of this section. That's subsection 4, the governor requesting the president to declare a state of emergency. So now let's come to the issue, because I feel it is the people who are supporting the president and telling people that, look, let's de-escalate, that are actually escalating the crisis. Yes, there was a constitutional crisis in Rivers State. And the Supreme Court, which is the statutory arm of government, constitutionally responsible to look into the issues were submitted before them. And they looked into the issues and condemned it and said parties should go back and rectify. And parties actually went back to rectify. So now that parties had rectified, was there still an imminent danger? The answer is no. And then the idea of, oh, look, the people, there was a palpable tension in the state and all of that. If you look at the provisions of Section 188, subsection 1 to 9, it spells out the provisions, how an impeachment of a governor can be carried out. And then the Supreme Court has reiterated also, in the case of Peter Obi and the Anambra State House of Assembly and Ladoja's case, that you cannot invoke subsection 10 except you comply with subsection 1 to 9. So a situation where the House of Assembly is threatening to impeach a governor, and then the House of Assembly runs into a logjam, do you now need to help the House of Assembly by declaring a state of emergency and say the parties are quarreling? These people are now, because it is not about insecurity. That is why the National Assembly is saying they want to set up a committee to reconcile. Are you reconciling insecurity? So we all know where this is coming from. This is clearly political. And so that's why also the senator is saying that it will give both parties. Are we also saying that in Nigeria today, so once you have a quarrel between, or misunderstanding between the House of Assembly and the executive arm of government, and then we should declare a state of emergency, Edo, for 4 years, a governor refused to swear in members of the...
Didn't Wike himself have 6 lawmakers at the point?
I don't even want to go there now. In Edo, the governor refused to swear in about 11 or 14 lawmakers. Yeah. The matter was submitted to the court, even though the court spent 4 years and it moved between 9 judges and it was never heard. A state of emergency was not declared in Edo. In fact, the roof of, while I'm not encouraging removal or destruction of a state house of assembly like Fubara did, which is condemnable, But a state of emergency was not declared. In the Northeast, as I speak, people are using ransom to do TikTok. That is clear danger and threat to our national security and peace. Farmers cannot go to farm. These places, there is no state of emergency in these places. You have two arms of government, two independent arms of government that are supposed to checkmate each other, are quarreling, and they have refused to sit down and resolve their issues. The court had helped them to resolve, and we are saying that is a ground for declaring a state of emergency. And so does that mean now that you have a crisis in Osun State, where the former local government and present local government chairman at loggerhead, so the president would...
Some people have started saying they should
exactly.
declare state of emergency.
In Benue State, as we speak now, the governor and the chief judge of the state are at loggerhead. And so, are we saying that the president should declare state of emergency?
Real quickly.
So how many areas are we going to declare state of emergency? Quickly, Rufai, please. On the issue of allocation, the Supreme Court ruled before now. The federal government approached the Supreme Court under Section 7 of the Constitution, requesting that the Supreme Court should make a pronouncement that under no guise can a state governor suspend a democratically elected local government chairman. And the Supreme Court so agreed with the APC and the federal government. That same federal government today is saying that they have powers to suspend a democratically elected governor and state house of assembly because the two cannot agree on what should happen in Section 188. And now, the same court, the same highest court of the land said, don't release allocation to a government that is not democratically elected. And now you appointed a sole administrator, you are going to flout the constitution and release allocation. And so that means it is not about fighting insecurity. It's about taking Rivers State through the back door and not about insecurity. Because if it's about insecurity, you take charge of the areas and find solution to the security challenges in those areas and not take over the entire state.
Okay, real quickly. Couple of things. I want clarification for public education. You know, I made mention of the fact that Minister Wike at some point when he was governor had 6 lawmakers. Can you throw more light as regards what happened around that time? Another question is, I think in the conversation here, somebody was saying that the Senate should remember that they are also, sort of like, a part of the government and everything. So I'm asking, Dr. Abati, based on the spirit of the law by Baron de Montesquieu, where is separation of powers here? Are we, or like Baron Montesquieu said, are we now practicing separation of power or fusion of powers? Because Baron Montesquieu talked about those two concepts in the spirit of laws that I read, separation of powers or fusion of powers. I want you to answer that. And for Mr. Magnus Abbey, Senator Magnus Abbey, the question I have for you is this. Please, can you show us with evidential proof the insecurity that is happening in Rivers State? Hope you know that the transnational pipeline that was blown up has started working again a day after. And hope you know the 2 other incidents of bombings around that area. NMPC has discarded some of them that say it was just a flare. So please, can you plot us the state of insecurity, the fighting and the killings that were happening on the road, in Rivers, in Port Harcourt, that warranted, and also the arguments on those that support the government is always that things were not fixed. But this was the same fubara that wrote to the House and said, let's represent the budget. But the House rebuffed him and said they were going to go into loan by pushing for his impeachment. So show me the fairness in all this conversation. But let Mr. Liboros answer first, because you are always taking, the front part. So please, can you put those clarity as regards, the things I talked about?
Briefly. Yeah,
managing time.
Please, thank you. You see, that's anytime there is such a constitutional crisis, whether by 2 lawmakers, 3 lawmakers, 6 lawmakers, it is for the court to deal with. Because at every given time, there are situations where you have, even off-cycle election, there are situations where a governor comes in and you have members in the State House of Assembly who are not members of his party. What he does is to woo them back to his party. In Wike's time, election was conducted for just, in some areas in Rivers State, election was not conducted because they couldn't conduct election because of insecurity in those areas. And I remember the INEC attempted to conduct those elections on 2 different occasions, and it was not successful. But did they declare a state of emergency in Rivers?
Was there any point that Wike had 6 lawmakers?
Because the election was not conducted.
So he had 6 lawmakers?
Yes, it was. I don't know. I can't remember the numbers now. But because elections were not conducted in those constituencies, lawmakers could not be sworn in with the rest. And there was no state of emergency in that state until INEC dealt with it. Even as I speak now in Edo State, you have a governor who is a governor of the APC, and the speaker is in PDP. They are working harmoniously. And it's about give and take. If the parties could not sit down, and the Supreme Court had helped them to resolve the issue, do you now need to say, I believe, and I can clearly say this, that this pipeline issue was contrived. It was contrived to create this scenario and then declare a state of emergency and say, oh, let the people go and settle. Is that what the Constitution required?
Please talk to us about the separation of power or fusion of power. Because I think somebody was saying about it.
Seriously, what we have here is a fusion of power. Like, and that is why somebody said that once this matter gets to the National Assembly, the current National Assembly will find any excuse to adopt and support Mr. President. So what were this security issue? This is security, the issues, the information could have been taken at the executive session, and then the voting can be done publicly. But when this information was not taken at the, because from what we heard from some senators also, there was no information that was taken at the executive session. And this idea of kowtowing to the whims and caprices of the executive, and I am also ashamed, because I know that's what they all do, which is what led to this fight. A governor would want the State House of Assembly to be an extension of the executive. And that is what we have taken to the national level. Before now, we used to have a vibrant House of Representatives. But unfortunately today, we don't no longer expect anything from the House of Rep, don't talk of Senate.
Okay. We need to go to Senator Magnus. Please, empirically prove for us the insecurity in the states. And also confirm for us, didn't the governor make attempts to represent the budget and write to the lawmakers, but they rebuffed him? Was that a level of fairness? But prove to us the insecurity, the fighting in Rivers State that was constant, the shooting on the streets that led to this state of emergency.
Erufai.
Yes, sir.
Erufai, just calm down. I don't have to prove anything to you. Your position on this matter is known. And what I want to say to you people is that it is important. Yes, it's true. It's true. I don't have to prove anything to you.
Answer question now.
What I want to say to you people
Senator,
is that
you have a right to answer the question. I'm just saying prove to me. Senator, you see, we are making arguments here.
I don't have
copious
to prove
logical
arguments. Why do I have to prove
so please
anything
prove
to
to
you?
me, Senator,
You are not
that there
making
was
any...
so much insecurity.
Or defend your statement.
Defend your statement that there was so much insecurity. You said it before. Defend it.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Listen. I don't have to prove anything to you. The position you people have taken is known to the entire country. But all I want to say to you is that for the sake of the people of Rivers State, is it important that we have a balance? There are two sides to every coin. And it is important that both sides are represented in issues. You come here, we have an elected president. The president has information that you and I do not have. And he has told you the reasons why the state of emergency was declared is clearly set out in the speech of the president to the entire nation on that issue. You have a different opinion, but you don't have that power to overturn what the president has said. The president has presented what led him to that decision to the national... I'm coming, sir. Just allow me to talk.
Yes.
The president has presented what led him to that decision to the National Assembly, which is the body that our constitution, elected by the Nigerian people, has set up to review what the president has done. And they were unanimous in their decision to stand by what the president did. You have a right not to agree with it, but it is not proper for us to come here and begin to present a scenario, make speculation